Gentlemen, as we convene to dissect the great revolution that birthed our nation, let us not forget the gravity of our endeavor. For while we stand united in purpose, our interpretations are as diverse as the colonies we represent.
Indeed, Mr. Franklin, if understanding is our quarry, then let us hunt with vigor. The American Revolution, a profound assertion of the human spirit against tyranny, deserves no less.
Vigor, Mr. Jefferson? I should say so. Yet, let us not dally in the abstract. The very fabric of our discussion ought to be woven with the hard truths of our strife. The legal entanglements with the Crown were but the beginning.
Let us also remember, the unity we found in our common cause was not easily won. Differences aside, it was our shared commitment to liberty that fortified our resolve.
A resolve that was tested at every turn, General Washington. Our philosophical underpinnings, inspired by the Enlightenment, informed much of our struggle, yet practical governance demanded more than ideals alone. And let us not overlook the intricacies of our financial endeavors. The war was as much a battle of coffers and supply lines as it was of ideals and philosophies.
Well stated, all. As we embark on this discussion, let us probe these multifaceted dimensions with the diligence they warrant. Though our experiences differ, it is through our collective insight that the true essence of our revolution comes to light.
And in this exploration, may we be unbound by the shackles of modesty. The American Revolution was not merely a historical event. It was a beacon of hope, a testament to what enlightened minds can achieve against despotism.
A beacon, yes, but let us not forget, Mr. Jefferson, the towering waves we navigated to keep it alight. Legal tyranny in its most vile forms sought to extinguish our cause.
Amidst this, our unity was our bastion. Disparate colonies, once suspicious of one another, forged a nation. Such a transformation is worthy of our deepest contemplation.
Indeed, but let us approach with a scholar's eye. Our revolution was not only the consequence of current doctrines, but a crucible in which new ideas of governance were tested and refined. And let us be frank about the enormity of our economic challenges. Our path was uncharted, fraught with peril both from within and without. Our financial strategies were as revolutionary as our politics.
So as our discourse unfolds, let this be our charge, to illuminate not just the known paths of our revolution, but to uncover the obscured alleyways of our history, for in them lies wisdom for future generations. Let us begin. Gentlemen, let us turn our minds to the origins and philosophical underpinnings of colonial discontent. Mr. Jefferson, your insights on the Enlightenment principles would enlighten us all.
Indeed, Mr. Franklin. The Enlightenment bathed us in the light of reason, teaching us that all men are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. This philosophy of natural rights and the social contract theory rustled the spirits of our colonists, challenging the shackles imposed by a distant monarch.
Whilst Mr. Jefferson waxes poetic about natural rights, let us not overlook the stark legal violations perpetrated by the Crown. Acts without consent, justice denied, charters abolished, the litany of grievances forms a legal basis for our discontent.
Both philosophic ideals and legal breaches have stirred us, but it was the iron grip of tyranny that truly united us. A sense of American identity and purpose was forged in the crucible of these adversities.
Mr. Washington articulates the point with precision, yet the ideological ferment provided by Enlightenment thinkers cannot be understated. It was our beacon.
Enlightenment is all well and good, Mr. Jefferson. But without the egregious legal injustices, would the beacon have found its fuel? It was the palpable breach of our British rights that rallied the colonies.
But Mr. Adams, the intellect of man, when enlightened, sees beyond the immediate breaches to the vast ocean of liberty before us. Our legal grievances were but the spark to the powder keg of philosophic revolution.
Gentlemen, while both your points hold merit, it was the unity and identity that these ideals and legalities fostered amongst us that truly birthed the revolution. Without either, we might still be pledging allegiance across the ocean.
It appears that our roots of discontent are deeply intertwined with the nourishment from both legal and philosophical soils. Shall we consider how these convictions led us to act against the Stamp Act and Townshend Acts? Gentlemen, let us move our discussion to the perturbations stirred by the Stamp Act and Townshend Acts. Mr. Madison, would you be so kind as to inaugurate our discourse?
Indeed, Mr. Franklin. The Stamp Act and Townshend Acts were not merely fiscal policies, but emblematic of a systemic disregard for colonial representation. The imposition of these acts without our input was a blatant affront, underscoring Parliament's belief in our subjugation rather than partnership. While I concur with Mr. Madison's assessment of representation, we must not overlook the economic calculus. These acts threatened the prosperity of our merchants, the lifeline of colonial economies. Their repeal was not only a political necessity, but an economic imperative to avoid financial ruination.
Mr. Hamilton speaks the truth, but let us not forget, the legality of these acts was entirely questionable. They were not just imprudent, they were illegal under our English rights. It was a blatant violation of our liberties, a stance I vehemently defended in my opposition writings.
Indeed, Mr. Adams. And what of the colonial response? There was a rather spirited reaction, was there not?
Spirited, to say the least. The Sons of Liberty, the boycotts, the colonies unified in a manner heretofore unseen. We did not merely grumble in our parlors. We took to the streets. Our actions were the embodiment of civic engagement and resistance.
But let us not overlook the philosophical underpinning of our response. These acts awakened a realization of our own American identity, distinct from our British brethren. It was not merely resistance to taxation, but a declaration of our inherent rights and liberties.
A catalyst for unity, certainly. Mr. Washington, from your vantage, how did these acts affect the colony's collective spirit?
The acts served to crystallize our cause. The disparate colonies began to see themselves as part of a greater American whole. It was this unity, forged in the fires of adversity, that allowed us to eventually stand as one against the might of the British Empire.
Yet let us remember, gentlemen, unity and spirited resistance alone would not have sufficed. It was our eventual ability to articulate a coherent economic and political strategy that carried us forward. Precisely, Mr. Hamilton. Our philosophical foundations and legal arguments against such acts strengthened our resolve and our case to the world. They were not mere grievances. They were the very bedrock of our nascent democracy.
A robust debate, gentlemen. It seems the Stamp Act and Townshend Acts, though designed to subdue, instead invigorated a revolution. Let us carry forward this spirit as we navigate the subsequent challenges discussed in our next segment. Gentlemen, let us now turn our attention to the critical role of propaganda and communication networks in unifying our burgeoning nation. John Adams, your pamphleteering was relentless. Speak on this power.
My pamphlets pierced the veil of ignorance, rousing the spirit of liberty amongst our countrymen. Each word I penned was a bullet in the heart of British tyranny. Without these missives, the common man might have remained shackled in thought, if not in body.
While your efforts are commendable, Mr. Adams, do not overlook the broader tapestry. The committees of correspondence were instrumental in weaving a network of unity across the colonies. They facilitated a grand exchange of ideas, stoking the flames of rebellion and brotherhood alike.
Both of you tout your methods, yet overlook the essence. It was the substance that mattered, the ideals of liberty and justice. Without these, your pamphlets and committees would have been but whispers in the wind.
Indeed, General Washington. And let us not forget the strategic use of media. My own efforts in the Pennsylvania Gazette and the creation of potent imagery such as the join or die snake served not merely to inform, but to galvanize and unify our disparate colonies.
If I may interject, the efficacy of these tools cannot be understated. However, the evolution of our struggle required more than just the pen and the printing press. It demanded coordinated action and strategy, underpinned by the solid foundation of shared information and ideals.
Hamilton, your perspective, as always, leans too heavily on the machinery of war. Remember, the battle for hearts and minds cannot be won with cannon alone. Our words were the very sinew that bound the colonies together in common cause.
Precisely, Mr. Adams. The essence of our struggle was encapsulated in those dispatches, pamphlets, and newspapers. They were our weapons of enlightenment, cutting through tyranny and ignorance.
A lively debate, gentlemen. It is clear that the amalgamation of our efforts in propaganda, communication, and indeed, the strategic dissemination of our revolutionary ideals played a paramount role in our ultimate success. Let us proceed. Gentlemen, let us now pivot to the matter of our alliances, both continental and overseas. Mr. Franklin, your successes in France were pivotal. Pray, share your stratagem. With pleasure, though 'twas no small feat. In seeking the French alliance, I employed a measure of charm and wit, but, more significantly, I underscored our mutual benefit against a common foe. The French, still smarting from their losses in the 7 Years' War, found in our rebellion a chance to weaken the British. 'Twas a marriage of convenience, you might say.
While Franklin played the amiable philosopher in Paris, the task in the Dutch Republic and elsewhere fell to me, among others. Europe was a chessboard, and we were nigh but pawns aspiring to queenship. Recognition and support were not gifts, but hard won through relentless negotiation and oftentimes leveraging our few victories to great effect.
Indeed, the alliance with France marked a turning point, not merely in provisioning and funding, but in legitimizing our cause on the global stage. The victory at Saratoga, as you've alluded to, Adams, proved decisive in convincing the French of our potential. Without such alliances, our path to victory would have been far more treacherous.
'Tis true, the fabric of our revolution was threaded with the support of foreign powers, but we must not understate the significance of our own continental efforts to unify against British imposition. Our cause, at its core, was just, appealing to those who valued liberty and the right of self-governance.
Whilst I concede to the necessity and value of our foreign alliances, we cannot overlook the internal divisions these very alliances sometimes exacerbated. Our dependence on French support, for instance, introduced a dynamic of expectancy and obligation that we wrestled with long after Yorktown.
A valid point, Hamilton. Our foreign entanglements did indeed sow seeds of future diplomatic challenges. Yet, without the support of France and others, one shudders to think how our struggle for independence might have faltered. The balance between sovereignty and dependency is a delicate dance, to be sure.
Dependency, Franklin? 'Twas not merely a matter of dependency, but of astute strategy and diplomacy. We had naught but our resolve and our wits. Every alliance formed was a testament to our ingenuity and an investment in our shared future as a sovereign nation.
Let us not forget, every musket, every franc, every ally garnered came at the cost of immense sacrifice. Our foreign allies did not join our cause lightly. Their support was earned through the blood and perseverance of our continental forces and the steadfastness of our citizenry.
Indeed, Washington. The alliances we forged were not only military in nature, but symbolic, resonating with the promise of a world where nations could stand as equals. Our revolution sent ripples through the ages, inspiring others to fight for their unalienable rights.
A spirited discourse, gentlemen. Our alliances, both forged and fortuitous, underpinned the very essence of our quest for independence. They were, as Jefferson suggests, not only strategic, but emblematic of a broader aspiration towards a more equitable world order. Gentlemen, let us now turn our minds to the weighty matter of the Declaration of Independence, its rationale, its fervor, and its reverberations through time. Mr. Jefferson, you penned the document. Pray, begin our discourse.
Indeed, the Declaration was not merely a call to arms, but a beacon of human rights. Predicated on the Enlightenment ideals that all are created equal, endowed with unalienable rights amongst these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. A bold assertion, aiming to dissolve the political bands which have connected us with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle us.
While I stand unwavering beside the principles laid down in the Declaration, let us not forget the fervent debates and the conciliation of diverging views within the Continental Congress. It was unity, born of necessity, which allowed us to present such a bold face to the world. Our debates were as much a forge as they were a crucible.
And yet, the immediate impact of the Declaration was as much practical as it was philosophical. It served as a rallying cry, a unifier of disparate factions, and a signal to foreign powers of our earnest intention to sever ties with the British Crown. It opened doors, notably with France, which may have otherwise remained closed.
Indeed, Mr. Hamilton, the Declaration was instrumental in our diplomatic efforts, but let us not understate the universality of its creed. It was, and continues to be, a declaration not just of American independence, but of human rights.
Mr. Jefferson, with respect, the universality of which you speak was, in practice, somewhat more selective. We must acknowledge our failings in extending these self-evident truths to all individuals within our young nation.
Mr. Adams makes a pointed observation. The spirit of the Declaration, while noble, laid bare before us a path strewn with contradictions and challenges, slavery being among the most egregious.
Gentlemen, whilst the Declaration indeed ignited the flames of liberty and independence, it also cast a long shadow over the ensuing struggle. It was a torch in the tempest of war, guiding our resolve, yet it illuminated the complex landscape of our emerging identity, fraught with internal conflicts and moral quandaries.
The Declaration was both a door flung open to infinite possibilities and a mirror reflecting our own imperfections. As we forged ahead, the ideals enshrined in that document tested our resolve, our consistency, and our commitment to the very liberties we declared inviolate.
True, gentlemen. The path of liberty is fraught with obstacles, and the Declaration was but the first step in our nation's journey. It set forth a vision, a promise yet to be fully fulfilled. It falls to us and to posterity to strive ever towards that more perfect union.
A spirited debate befitting the gravitas of our subject. The Declaration of Independence remains a cornerstone of not just our republic, but as a beacon to all who value freedom and liberty. Let us then proceed, emboldened by the spirit of '76, to our next matter of discourse. Gentlemen, our discourse now turns to the military strategies that shaped our war for independence. General Washington, your dual strategy of conventional warfare and guerrilla tactics was pivotal. Pray, enlighten us on this decision.
Indeed, Mr. Franklin, our situation required adaptability. At the onset, our Continental Army was inexperienced and ill-equipped. Engaging the British in conventional battles proved disastrous at times. Thus, we integrated guerrilla tactics, striking swiftly and then vanishing, a method born out of necessity and our intimate knowledge of the terrain.
With all due respect, General, I find this emphasis on guerrilla warfare a bit overstated. The importance of establishing a strong central command and organizing a national army cannot be understated. Our victories at Saratoga and Yorktown were achieved through conventional warfare, not merely by hit-and-run tactics.
Mr. Hamilton, your point is taken. However, you must acknowledge that without the flexibility to adapt our strategies, including the use of guerrilla tactics, those conventional victories might have been out of our grasp. It was the combination of both that ultimately led to our success.
Gentlemen, I assert that the essence of our military strategy was not just about the tactics employed in the field. It hinged on our ability to adapt to changing circumstances, whether in battle or in our political maneuvering. This adaptability was our true advantage.
Mr. Madison speaks to a broader truth. Our flexibility in strategy was reflective of our Enlightenment ideals. We were not rigid in our thinking. Rather, we adopted a pragmatic approach, taking into account the realities of our situation and the overarching principle of liberty.
While your points are well made, we must not romanticize our endeavors. The simple fact remains that we fought a war out of dire necessity and were compelled to use whatever means at our disposal to secure our independence. The employment of guerrilla tactics, though innovative, was born out of survival rather than pure strategic ingenuity.
Indeed, Mr. Adams, necessity often breeds invention. As we reflect on our military strategies, we can all agree that the combination of conventional and guerrilla tactics, underpinned by a unified command, was instrumental in our victory. Each approach, though debated in its efficacy, contributed to the fabric of our success. Gentlemen, let us now discuss perhaps one of the most pressing issues of our struggle, the financing of our revolution. Mr. Hamilton, you've had considerable experience in this realm. Pray, tell us of your mechanisms for funding the war.
Indeed, Mr. Franklin, our struggle for independence was as much a financial battle as it was one fought with muskets and cannon. Without funds, our armies would stand hungry and ill-equipped. I advocated for loans and the issuance of currency, despite the inflationary risks. The challenges were manifold, yet it was a necessity for our survival. A national debt, if not excessive, will be to us a national blessing. While Mr. Hamilton's efforts were commendable, the issuance of currency without a solid backing indeed led to rampant inflation, depreciating the value of our paper money. Our post-war economy, as feared, teetered on the brink of collapse, necessitating a stronger fiscal framework. The war taught us the importance of a robust economic structure. Mr. Madison, our immediate concerns required immediate solutions. Yes, inflation was a byproduct, but without such measures we might still be bowing to a king. Our independence was worth the price.
Mr. Hamilton speaks from a position of necessity, yet the fiscal instability brought by the war was undeniable. Mr. Franklin, your role in securing international funding was crucial, was it not? Most assuredly. While domestic efforts to fund our endeavor were imperative, the securing of international loans and aid, particularly from France, was indispensable. Without such support, our efforts against the British might have been in vain. Diplomacy played as pivotal a role as any battle won on the fields.
The fiscal strategies, though cunning, brought to bear the heavy burden of debt upon our young nation. As commander, I witnessed firsthand the effects of our financial straits. Troops without proper winter clothing, shortages of gunpowder. The financial support did indeed keep us afloat, but at the cost of introducing a new kind of bondage, debt.
General Washington, your perspective is most valuable, yet let us not forget that the very fabric of our nation was stitched together in the throes of this financial tumult. It necessitated the creation of a centralized authority, leading to the very formation of our Constitution.
But let us consider, Mr. Hamilton, the dangers that lurk behind consolidating too much power in a central authority. Our recent struggle was against such a concentration of power. While I concede the necessity of funding our revolution, it behooves us to tread carefully, ensuring the liberty for which we fought is not suffocated by the very structures we erect to protect it.
Mr. Jefferson articulates a crucial caveat. Our task post-war is to establish a system that neither impinges on the liberty of the individual nor renders the state impotent. The Articles of Confederation's weaknesses in fostering a functional government were laid bare, yet in our zeal for a stronger federal authority, we must guard against the tyranny of centralized power.
A delicate balance indeed, gentlemen. Our discussions on financing the war and its aftermath reveal the depth of our challenges, balancing liberty with order and individual freedoms with the common good. As we forge ahead, may our decisions be guided by the wisdom gleaned from our struggles. Let us proceed, mindful of the past, but looking towards the future. Gentlemen, let us turn our focus to the clandestine operations that underpinned our efforts in the Revolution. The significance of espionage cannot be understated. George, your leadership in these matters was critical. Would you care to elucidate?
Indeed, Benjamin. The war was not merely fought on open fields. The shadows, too, bore witness to battles of wits. The Culper Ring was instrumental. Securing intelligence on British movements allowed us to make informed decisions that spared the lives of our men and turned the tides in our favor.
While George's points stand firm, we must not overlook the broader picture. Intelligence was not merely a tool of war, but a cornerstone of our diplomatic efforts as well. The knowledge we gained through covert means provided leverage in negotiations with our European allies. Secrecy, in its essence, was as much a weapon as any cannon or musket.
Yet, let us remember, the efficacy of such operations hinged upon the strength and structure of our command. Without a centralized authority to process and act upon this intelligence, it would have been naught but whispers in the wind. It underscores once more the necessity of a robust federal system.
James, you've been notably silent on the matter. Your thoughts?
The intrigue of espionage aside, it presents a moral quandary. While we acknowledge its utility, one must ponder the ethical implications. The manipulation, the deceit, these are not virtues. They are, however, a testament to the complexities of governance and the sacrifices required for the liberty we cherish.
Ethical or not, necessity oft makes philosophers of us all. The British left us little choice. Counterintelligence and espionage were vital in leveling the playing field. We were outmanned, outgunned, but thanks to our cunning, not outsmarted.
True enough, John. The war was as much a battle of information as it was of arms. Our capacity to adapt and employ every tool at our disposal, including espionage, was indeed a significant factor in our victory.
Aye, and let us not forget those who operated in the shadows, risked everything with no promise of glory or remembrance. It was a collective effort that required unsung heroes as much as it did generals and statesmen.
Indeed, it emphasizes the necessity of unity and cohesive action, not just on the battlefield, but in every theater of this grand endeavor for independence and governance.
As we reflect on those tumultuous times, it becomes evident that every act of espionage, every piece of intelligence garnered, contributed to the foundation of the nation we endeavored to build. A nation predicated on the principles of liberty and justice for all.
Well spoken, gentlemen. Our maneuvers in the penumbral corridors of war and diplomacy were as pivotal as any engagement on the open field. Espionage, with all its moral ambivalence, played a role in securing the liberty we sought. A delicate balance indeed. We turn now to the Articles of Confederation, a pivotal moment in our young nation's development. Let us not shy away from its merits and demerits. Mr. Madison, your thoughts commence this debate.
With all due candor, the Articles of Confederation provided a framework too frail for the robust union necessary. They vested too little power in the central authority, particularly in matters of finance and defense. This weakness in our national fabric nearly unraveled our hard-fought gains. Indeed, Madison speaks truth. The Articles left us financially crippled, unable to levy taxes or regulate commerce effectively. A government must wield the power to support itself, to sustain its defense, and to govern its people. The Confederation was little more than a league of friendship between sovereign states, an arrangement too feeble for our aspirations.
Gentlemen, whilst I concede the Articles had their faults, we must not disparage their initial intent. They were a necessary step towards unity, a bridge from dependency to independence. They enshrined the principle of state sovereignty, a tenet paramount to the original colonies wary of distant tyrannical rule.
Adams touches upon a vital point. Recall, brethren, the spirit of '76, a spirit of resistance against overweening power. The Articles were birthed from this same spirit. Their flaw was not in intention, but in fulfillment, not in theory, but in practice. A stronger federation was needed, yes, but let us not belittle the noble aspirations of our first governing document.
Noble aspirations cannot defend borders, pay debts, or ensure domestic tranquility. We found ourselves at the mercy of foreign powers and domestic insurrections. Shays' Rebellion, for instance, laid bare the Confederation's impotence. A new constitution was not merely desirable, it was imperative for survival. Hamilton elucidates the crux. Our experiment under the Articles taught us that balance is paramount. Too little power, and we risk dissolution. Too much, and we echo the tyranny we opposed. This delicate balance was our guiding principle in crafting the Constitution.
The Articles indeed proved insufficient for the governance of a nation. Yet, they were a necessary predecessor to the Constitution. Out of their shortcomings came the impetus for a stronger, more unified government. It is through understanding these failures that we secured a more perfect union.
Thus, we find consensus in recognizing the Articles for what they were, a stepping stone, flawed yet critical in our evolutionary journey towards governance. Let us remember, the path to wisdom is often paved with errors, recognized and rectified. Gentlemen, let us turn our discussions toward the aftermath of our victorious revolution and the establishment of our government. General Washington, your insights on the challenges of demobilizing and reintegrating our soldiers are most eagerly anticipated.
Indeed, Mr. Franklin, the business of disbanding our army, composed of men of valor who have bled for this country, presents itself a task no less daunting than the war fought. The cessation of hostilities demands of us a firm and judicious hand to ensure these men find their way back to a life of peace, without the means or cause to turn their hard-earned skills to less virtuous ends. It is the unity and welfare of these men that we must now secure.
While General Washington's concerns for our soldiers are most noble, we must also turn our gaze to the philosophical foundations of the government we aim to construct. A government that does not guarantee the protection of the liberties for which we have fought is no government I wish to partake in. Our discourse should thus not only encompass physical reconstruction, but an intellectual and moral one.
And yet, Mr. Jefferson, without a strong federal government, our discussions on liberties are but mere philosophical exercises. The Articles of Confederation have left us with a weak confederation, incapable of addressing the very real problems that face our new nation. We require a strong federal system, one that can command respect both at home and abroad. Mr. Hamilton speaks the truth on the necessity of a strong federal authority. However, let us not forsake the lessons learned. Our Constitution must address the defects of the Confederation without encroaching upon the rights and liberties of the individual states. It is a delicate balance to draft a document that grants sufficient power to the federal government while ensuring it does not become a tool for tyranny.
It is exasperating, truly, that after all our hardships, there is still among us those who would hesitate to forge a strong centralized authority. Have we not learned from our struggles against a distant monarch that without unity and a powerful guiding hand, our efforts are futile? It is imperative we create a government robust enough to govern, to protect, and to guide.
Indeed, as each of you have elucidated, the path forward is fraught with complexity. Our solutions lay not in the extremities, but in balance, a government powerful yet restrained, capable yet just. Let us proceed with the wisdom we have gleaned from our struggles, with a keen eye on the future we wish to build. The task before us is monumental, yet I am confident that together we shall rise to meet it.
Aye, Mr. Franklin, in unity we shall find our strength. The resolution of these challenges shall require of us all a commitment to the common weal above personal ambition or sectional interest. In this, we must all agree. The dialogue among these formidable intellects and personalities captures the essence of their respective views and characters, while highlighting the complexity and urgency of the issues they face during this formative period of American history.
Gentlemen, we approach the close of our rigorous engagement. Pray, allow us the benefit of your wisdom for future generations. Mr. Washington, your words bear great weight.
Unity must be our watchword. Dissensions, factions, and the lure of power might rend what we've built asunder. Our struggle against the yoke of tyranny reminds us that leadership demands sacrifice, and unity is born of mutual respect and shared adversity.
Enlightenment ideals ought not to be cast aside in the face of governance. Our experiment in liberty and self-determination is a beacon. Educate the masses, for knowledge dispels the shadows of tyranny. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants.
The law, our bedrock. When passions inflame the populace, let us not forget the legal structures we've erected. Rights, once relinquished, become near impossible to reclaim. Vigilance against the encroachment on these rights is the duty of every American.
As the architect of the Constitution, I assert the balance of power is paramount. An unchecked system breeds despotism. Our republic must evolve, adapt, but always within the framework that safeguards liberty through the separation of powers and checks and balances. Our young nation's prosperity hinges on robust federal authority and a thriving economy. Let us not feign surprise at the challenges of governance. Rather, let us meet them with the fortitude and innovation that have characterized our endeavors heretofore. Fiscal soundness and a strong central government are not the enemies of freedom, but its guardians.
The strand that binds these reflections is the necessity of forward thinking, combined with a reverence for the principles on which our nation was founded. We are indeed architects of an edifice meant to shelter generations yet unborn. Wisdom, innovation, and an unwavering commitment to the public good must guide our successors. Let pragmatism light the path forward, tempered by the idealism that birthed a nation conceived in liberty.